becoming legal, there's just so many different opportunities. So, just like what's going to be new and next, because now the other part is just everybody has a new strain,
Mm-hmm.
especially on the celebrity space. Now everybody's in the game.
Yep.
So how are we going to differentiate, like, okay, what's really new and upcoming and future facing and what's just the regular? It's like with everybody with a book, everybody's an author, right? So
Yep.
how do we know who's really changing the game and who's not? That's what I
Yep.
want to know.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, that brings us to our lovely show, I guess, today. Justine, I'm going to hand the mic over to you so that you can go ahead and get started. And I'll be hanging out in the background. Justine, I'm going to try to get Emily on.
So Emily just got back to me. She said she's jumping on now.
Oh,
So
perfect. Okay, you want to wait another moment?
Yeah, she just wrote me right now.
Okay, cool. We can do some icebreakers.
Is anyone smoking? I see everyone like well behaved and stuff. I want in here.
Yeah. Honestly, this is one of those events where all of you, every single one of you can roll up and I won't even mind, because I know some of you are probably like, I don't want to do this on a professional event, but
yeah, fuck that. I have my weed right here. My weed bag.
That's awesome. All right, we'll do a little icebreaker then while we're waiting for Emily. Let's see, what strain is your favorite? Do you, if you're a smoker, or if you like edibles, if you don't smoke, tell me about like if you prefer edibles or what kinds of edibles you like. But are you all into indica, sativa, or hybrid? I'll start with Dean. What's up, Dean?
Well, when I was a smoker, indica.
Nice.
Indica, that shit. Yeah, I went to California in October, and it was just like a 360. Cause I live in Florida, and it was just like you go to dispensary and you see all these different strains, and it's like it's mind blowing. But out of all my favorite ones I tried was indica for sure.
Nice. Who else? Tyler, what do you like?
I don't smoke.
Yes, you do. Don't lie to me, Tyler. I know you smoke. What?
Nah, I played sports in high school, so I thought it was a bad thing, and I just don't smoke now. So.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. What about you, Kevin? I know you smoke. You're a stoner.
I also kind of only smoke indicas. I would say one of my favorite strains is Dosey Dose.
Nice. All right. Dee, I know you smoke. What do you smoke?
I like indica, but I rather prefer a hybrid, like an indica hybrid, because then it gives me both of them. And my favorite is Gorilla Glue, and I like Afghani. Those are my favorite.
Ooh, nice. Cool. All right. I think we are just about ready to get started. I'm seeing Emily here as well. So Justine, I'm going to pass the mic on over to you. Thank you everybody for coming. And Justine, on to you.
Thank you. As Lex said, thank you everyone for coming. I'm super excited for this event because if anyone knows me, I'm a major pothead, and it's definitely an industry I want to get myself into. So I'm really excited to learn more with these industry experts. We have Rama Mayo and we have Emily Ramos joining us today. So round of applause for them. And if you guys could introduce yourselves, we can start with Rama.
Sure. My name's Rama Mayo. I'm from Boston, and then I moved to New York because that's what you do. And it was still cold there. So I've living in LA or California the past maybe 20 years. I started booking like punk rock shows when I was maybe like 15. And then I started a record label when I was 16. And I did that label for about 12 years. Started as a hobby because I couldn't play drums. And then I put out 70 plus bands and started managing some major label artists, and mostly like white dudes with guitars, like the first Jimmy Eat World, The Hives, like those kind of bands, you know, like emo punk kind of stuff. And then I got out of the music business because iTunes was really coming out, and you know, people weren't going to be buying music. My distributor at the time said no one would ever stop going to record stores. Obviously they were wrong, you know. So I got out early, and then I started doing like I started a fashion trade show basically for a couple years with some music friends of mine, a guy named Steve Aoki, who's like a big DJ now. But him and I had punk labels. We were friends since like the 90s. So I helped him with his label, and then that turned into doing a fashion trade show together with him for a couple years. And then for the past, I don't know, maybe 15 years, I've just been doing advertising. And the last 8 have been dedicated to cannabis. It started when I was doing Beats by Dre, Disney, DreamWorks, a lot of music stuff, right? Because that's how I know. So I was doing, you know, music clients, but not putting out records. And we signed G-Pen, the portable vaporizer, the little G-Pen. So that's Snoop Dogg and Action Bronson and Wiz and, you know, tons of other art stuff and fashion stuff and whatever. And everything you've ever seen, we did, everything. You know, like the same Snoop Dogg designs from 10 years ago are still in print today that we made. And that went so well that their lawyer came to me and said, hey, your advertising agency, my law firm, should merge together to create a compliant ad agency for weed, right? And we were super early, again, this is 8 years ago, but the exact same feeling I got from like the men and women that I was working with in the music space, that like, you know, we're gonna be big one day. I got that exact same feeling from the men and women in cannabis. And I knew that it would be the same thing. I had a very good feeling that I could get in where I was, get in super early, but I believe that trust would be priceless. So that was the idea. The goal was to survive off making $2 an hour, basically, for the first few years. We did that. It went, you know, very well. And then 3 or so years ago, I sold half of the company to Gary Vaynerchuk, which I'm sure some of you people are fans of, or maybe don't like him, but he is way crazier in person than he is on camera, like way, way, way crazier. It's insane. And Gary's our partner now in it, which obviously is like, that's like my tough big brother, if you will, on the block, right? It's going to allow us to really scale and grow and build Green Street into a big, big business. But I really look at it like I'm doing music still, you know? And then if you see like who Green Street works with, which is, you know, The Game, Juicy J, 2 Chainz, we do a bunch of other people too, but those are just like kind of the bigger, you know, celebrities or whatever. That's music, right? So like, it's not a coincidence that I'm using and doing weed stuff for musicians, because I was doing music stuff for musicians forever. So to me, I look at it like we're still kind of doing a record label, you know, but there's no indie or major labels in cannabis yet, really, you know, kind of, but not really, like no one's really proven. So my goal is just to build what I would say would be like the universal, you know, kind of group of cannabis. We have a trade show that we started called Hall of Flowers that we own. We have for cannabis. We have a building in downtown LA that we bought a couple years ago that we're converting into this major epicenter of cannabis business. And then we have a consumer festival we're doing next year with all those artists and Gary as all a part of it that I mentioned. And then we have a handful of brands. We have maybe 5 or 6 brands in market right now in California. And I don't know, that's it. I think that's enough, probably, I'm sure, you know.
Oh my God. What the heck is that? Anyway, thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
Some really great names, great story. Emily, can you introduce yourself?
Hi, thank you so much for inviting me to come speak today. My name is Emily Marie Ramos Rodriguez. I am a founder and worker owner of Jaime Madre LLC. We are a women and femme of color marijuana worker cooperative. We do a lot of work in the advocacy space in New York City. We were incubated by Green Worker Cooperative Academy in the South Bronx, which is a nonprofit organization that helps people of color, specifically folks from the South Bronx, to incubate their own worker cooperative businesses, which are businesses where all the workers are owners of their own business. So every member is the owner, has democratic decision-making, one member, one vote. There's equitable profit sharing. There's concern for community, which is one of our principles, which is why a lot of worker cooperatives give back to the community. And there's investment in education, training of our worker cooperative members. Through Green Worker Cooperative Academy, because it's green, they also have you envision your business as an eco-friendly business, even if it's not traditionally in an environmentally friendly industry. I'm based in New York City. I grew up in the Lower East Side, Spanish Harlem, living in NYCHA developments. I live in the projects. My father was impacted by marijuana prohibition and ended up doing 12 years in jail for selling marijuana. He was arrested in '93 when my mom was pregnant with me. So a lot of the work that I do is censoring racial equity and ensuring that the people who've been most harmed by marijuana prohibition and the war on drugs are censored in the legislation. So while in Green Worker Cooperative Academy, Drug Policy Alliance had invited us to speak on a panel at the Marijuana Symposium in Albany in December of 2018 about worker cooperative models in the marijuana industry. And since then, we've been heavily involved in advocacy work here in New York City to help marijuana legalize, with centering marijuana equity, reparative justice, and community reinvestment. So we've been in Albany since 2018, fighting for marijuana justice. We were very close to getting the bill passed in 2019, but due to some meddling between Governor Cuomo, the bill didn't get passed and he stalled the bill, unfortunately. And then last year wasn't a priority, but we were just able to pass the Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act here in New York, which is super exciting. But our work doesn't end here because we still have a lot of work to do to ensure that there is equity for the people in the marijuana industry here, and what we see happening in other states with white people coming in and taking over the industry, especially, those who have expendable bank accounts, who have not been impacted by the war on drugs, who have not been in the legacy market prior to legalization. Are not the only ones benefiting. In my opinion, I don't think they should be benefiting at all because they do not represent the communities who've been impacted by marijuana prohibition. In New York City, 86% of the arrests for marijuana were Black and brown people. And so that should be reflective of the industry here in New York, which is why a lot of our work now is focused on the regulations here in New York and ensuring that we follow the example of Cambridge, Massachusetts, and create moratorium on licensing so that folks who were not impacted by marijuana prohibition and folks who were not in the legacy markets prior to legalization are not the ones benefiting from the legal market, especially here in New York City, where my family are also still healing from the impacts of prohibition today. So that's why I do the work that I do. I started in the underground market selling edibles with my cousins. And in making this a legal business, we realized obviously there was a lot of barriers because we weren't legal here in New York. But we saw it coming because obviously other states were legalizing. The federal government has the MORE Act, and it's possible we're going to be legalizing federally in the next few years. So we're doing our work to make sure that our people have a stake in the market here in New York. We do want to have a vertically integrated business one day. Unfortunately, the law here in New York doesn't actually allow for that in the Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act. So there's also a lot of legislative advocacy we have to do to change the law to represent the needs of the people. Yeah, and that's me. My family comes from Borinquen. I'm Afro-Taína. Yeah, and right now we have 3 worker owners of our co-op.
Thank you so much, and thank you for all that you do for the community and here in New York City. Really, thank you so much. Well, both of you kind of answered kind of the questions that I had from your story. I want to know what has changed about the cannabis industry since you've got started. Clearly, Emily, you've been doing more advocacy work, and Rama, you starting out in music. Like, how have you seen it grow or develop in the last 10 years?
Emily, do you want to go first?
Sure. I know that the first bill to introduce to legalize marijuana by Drug Policy Alliance happened around 2012. I know folks like Charlene Title, I believe, and Cassandra Frederique have been organizing since like 2006. But I believe they started like getting more ground around 2012. And then in 2016 as well, as like more states began to legalize across the country. And then 2018 was the first time that Governor Cuomo introduced his version of the Cannabis Regulation and Taxation Act, as he saw that other states began to legalize. And at that time, the Marijuana Regulation and Taxation Act had already been introduced. I do see federal legalization coming soon. The Marijuana Opportunity Regulation and Expungement Act. That passed in the House recently, but didn't pass in the Senate. And so it's possible that federally we'll be legalizing soon. You want to know like my vision for the future of advocacy in this space, or the future of the industry in this space?
For anyone who's interested in joining the cannabis industry or being a part of it, what's kind of the best avenue, or what do you see in like the future if someone is interested now?
Right. So I know like Drug Policy Alliance national campaign is to decriminalize all drugs. And so similar to to Oregon, they're definitely going to be moving to make those moves as well here in New York. Eventually, right now, we're definitely focused on the regulations and ensuring that with marijuana legalization, we just didn't create a new market for folks from other states and countries to just come in and profit off of, while we're still trying to repair the harm done to communities impacted by prohibition. But definitely decriminalizing all drugs here, because that's also a racial equity issue. Most people in our communities are the ones who go to jail for drugs, whether it's using drugs or selling drugs. And we know a lot of the reasons that people even go to consume drugs are because of mental health issues, because of trauma, and other things that should be dealt with in the health system, and not necessarily not in the criminal justice system. And, people have autonomy over their own bodies, whether it's legal or not. People are still going to consume. Criminalizing the plant only prevents people from consuming in a safe way. And so we can be preventing overdoses if people have safe consumption sites where they can consume and have healthcare providers on site. God forbid they overdose, or they have clean needles so that they're not contracting viruses. They are able to test their product with strips, and so that they know that the product that they're consuming is not laced. These are things that we can make happen with decriminalizing drugs. It's already happening. Like in Ithaca, where I went to school, they had safe consumption sites for folks to come and consume. And so that's definitely the path that we're headed on. I don't know if they want to legalize drugs necessarily because of what we see happened with the marijuana plant. All of these people exploiting the plant and just wanting to market and profit off of the plant, and not really respecting and honoring the marijuana plant as a spirit and an ancestor that heals us and works with us to heal all of our traumas, to unlock our third eye, to unlock our pineal gland, and heal our endocrine and endocannabinoid system, and create this homeostasis in our body, and all of the blessings and abundance the marijuana plant gives us, being able to heal Mother Earth as well, being able to nourish us as food. Like, people are over consuming marijuana and not necessarily consuming marijuana with intention, and over relying on the marijuana plant rather than also relying on other plant ancestors and allies to heal us, and to hold us in our healing. And so I do hope that in legalization, people can become more intentional with their marijuana practice, and in consuming marijuana, that opens up, their connection with other plants that are also medicine, and can help us heal holistically, and can even be consumed, with marijuana to work even more, stronger in your body, to do that work that it needs to do. But if folks want to get involved in organizing, definitely hit up Drug Policy Alliance. For New York City specifically, it's spark-newyork.com that folks can sign up for the listserv. We also have information about with that, their information tagged as Marijuana Justice New York on Instagram. And if you follow us on Instagram at Jaime Madre, we also plug in a bunch of events that we're doing around advocacy, organizing in New York. We're going to be watching the regulations process closely here in New York. So if you want to get plugged in on how to do advocacy around the regulations to make sure the law gets implemented the way we want it to, definitely tap in. I'm also coordinating with National Expungement Week here in New York City, because, this issue goes much farther than just marijuana. Like we were saying, some folks have drug convictions on their records, or many folks, who are in the marijuana industry might have gun convictions or other convictions related to just the nature of the criminalization of the industry. And so we want to make sure that our people can fully re-enter our communities and fully regain their lives and, be able to prosper, right? Because they were the stewards of the marijuana plant. Like, we're able to have a legal industry now today because of the work that they've done, putting their lives at risk, putting their families at risk, so that we have access to this medicine. We have access to this plant, even though the government, was exploiting us and criminalizing the plant as a way to get us into the criminal justice system, to monetize us, profit off of our bodies. And so it's really important that, in this work, that we don't just stop with marijuana, like it goes beyond that, because we know the prison industrial complex is an extension of slavery. And most of the people in prison are Black and brown people. And most of the people in prison are actually there for drug-related crimes. And of those crimes, most of them are there for marijuana-related crimes. And so we do know that this is a system. There even is a school to prison pipeline in our communities to make sure that our people are funneled into the system. And so our work extends to National Expungement Week to make sure that folks in our community can get their records expunged. And we can even expand the criteria for what can be expunged in New York, because it is super limited. I know in New York City right now, there's about 19 or 20 people who are still in prison right now, or in New York State, for marijuana convictions. And right now, the defenders organizations are monitoring it and ensuring those people are released, but those people should not be in prison at all. And we've seen across the country, Dwayne Wright's family, he was just killed off of a stop that was something marijuana related. We really need to put an end to this criminal justice system that literally is built here as a way to police people of color and criminalize people of color and enslave us and profit off of our bodies. But I definitely see prison abolition in our future as well. So folks can plug in at Expungement Week New York City on Instagram for all of our events related to National Expungement Week. It takes place in September every year. So we'll be having events all throughout the year, but September will be the main events related to marijuana expungement and sealing, because we actually don't have expungement law in New York, except for the exception for marijuana. And if you want to get involved with expungement organizing in your own state, this is a national organizing project. And so you can contact the founder or Tori or one of the organizers, Felicia, on Instagram at Expungement Week, and they could definitely plug you into organizing around expungement or sealing in your state.
Thank you so much. You're doing such great work. I also wanted to hear from Rama Mayo. What are some of your thoughts in the future of cannabis and for folks who want to get into the industry and don't know how?
Sure, for sure. So I'd say, I mean, I keep saying keep cannabis illegal, right? And I really do mean that. And what I mean by that is when it comes federally legal, like, you know, Emily's completely right. It's just going to be like the people that have the biggest checkbooks are going to get the job, you know, kind of thing. You saw it with CBD already, you know? So I really do say keep cannabis illegal. I know it's silly, but like, I'm not joking at all because I want to build my businesses for our partners and everybody. And, you know, I think we're still really tiny yet. So I don't know when that will happen, but I would say that for sure, like this is a 100-story building and it's maybe the second story getting built right now, right? There's tons of time. There's plenty of room. You know, I was doing a Clubhouse thing for a while. It got too much work and I stopped, but I had Gary on there the other day with Juicy, and we talked about, you know, like what inning is it in cannabis, right? Someone asked Gary, what inning is it? And he's like, inning, it's not even started yet. He's like, we haven't even got out of bed yet to take a shower, to put our socks on, you know what I mean, kind of thing, right? So I definitely think if people are like worried it's too late, just like it's not at all too late or even close to that. Nice, I like the sneaker there. You know, so for sure there's plenty of time. I would say, how to do it. I mean, I think it really depends on where you live. You know, California is, you know, super far ahead of the other states, you know, in a lot of cases. Some states are completely illegal, obviously, right? So I think it's about like really where you live, you know. I would love to help people and place people, you know, give people specific, you know, information. I'm totally down for that. So anyone can reach out to me of you know, kind of, I'm thinking this, what do you think, or whatever, right? But I don't know. To me, it's going to come down to two things. It's going to be brands. It's going to be supply and demand, right? It's going to be brands, you know, and then it's going to be people that make the stuff. You know, I did fashion forever. I did music forever. You know, there's people that own the cut and sew factory and the dye house and the print shop, you know, and then there's people that put their label in at the end and charge 20 times for it, you know? So that's been our focus, is to be like the house of brands, like a true house of brands. So, yeah, but I think it's going to apply to everything. I think the tech space in cannabis has a giant world ahead of itself. I think the, you know, sales side of cannabis is super interesting. It's really whatever you want to do and whatever, you know, anything, right? It's like from the cultivation to the actual sales, like everything in between. So it's, yeah, I don't know if that helps at all, you know, but in the future, it's big ass. Gary calls it milk. Gary's like, it's going to be like milk, guys. You know what I mean? It's going to be super mainstream, like so mainstream, right? My goal, Green Street's goal is to be like the biggest indie, right? And my goal is to protect the authenticity of cannabis, you know, call it black market, call it, you know, legacy market, whatever you want to call it. You know, I want to protect the authenticity because I love it. I smoke weed all day, you know, indica, baseball bat to the head, just for the question earlier, please. You know, but I want it to be proud of it later. I want, you know, I'm doing it to protect the plant, you know, and our goal really for our dream, I guess, as an agency is like to be able to provide a world where people feel limitless, because that's how it makes me feel. You know, it's not for everybody, of course, but you know, I think that people really deserve to be able to have this plant. You know, like if it was a money thing, I'd be a doctor or something. You know, but you know, I'd say this to kind of bring it back and give a more specific example. I would say that musicians and bands have been promoting weed forever. You know, from Black Sabbath to whatever, you know, any rap group, right? So, you know, musicians deserve the ability to participate in the space. They've been the ones promoting it, you know? So that's like why we work with all these bands and these musicians, right? And then currently, brands can't advertise anywhere that's really worth it. You know, we can't, Zucks won't take the money yet, right? So we can't do the Facebook and Google ads, you know? So for now, the musicians have an unbelievable opportunity to be that megaphone, the advocate, if you will, you know, for these brands, right? And that's like that's what we do, right? And then I'd say it's really a community turning into an industry, right? So just like skateboarding or punk or hip hop or surf or whatever, these were communities that became huge and mainstream, you know? So right now it is definitely a community. And you see that with a brand, and I know we're live, so I don't want to talk too much shit, but you know, you see that with a brand like Marley Natural, right? Like Marley Natural, $70 million budget, privateer holdings. They also own Leafly, to put it in perspective, and they haven't had a success, you know? I would think I could give Emily, you know, I could take it, anyone on this call could take the Marley Natural brand from scratch and start it over again. And it's fucking the Marley name. I mean, how much more head start could you ever get? And they couldn't even do it because the way they came into the industry, like they reflected off of it because it was so corporate and blah, 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 you know? So I just think that's a huge, huge part of this, you know? And I really believe, I'll end it with this. We believe the biggest companies and brands have not been started yet. And they're gonna be started by the people that are in the trenches and the business people. But there's not a respect on both sides. The money people just look at it like, oh, it's just weed. My cousin grew tulips or whatever. And the weed people look at the money people like, oh, I have $8 million under my bed. What are you gonna tell me? You know what I mean? So I think until you really find those like partners and like the ego is okay and there's the trust there, you're gonna do the business, you're gonna do the, you know, supply and demand side of it, if you will. You know, I think that's what it's gonna be, you know? So yeah, that's it. I guess that's what we think.
I want to add something really quick. If folks are interested in starting a marijuana co-op, they could, if you're based in New York, you could look into Green Worker Cooperative Academy in the South Bronx. But our trade association also hosts training series throughout the year on how to start a co-op. If you go to NICNOC, I'll put the Instagram in the chat. And then our federal trade association, United States Federation of Worker Cooperatives, also holds a training series throughout the year. And if you're not in a legal state yet, I would recommend starting an ancillary business, which is not a plant touching business, as a way to like open a bank account, start building up business credit, start building up capital that you can then invest into your legal business before it becomes legal in your state, and definitely get involved in advocacy work. We always say that you can't have a marijuana business in the industry if you're not doing advocacy. It goes hand in hand. And, you know, ideally we wouldn't want people to be commodifying the plant and, you know, exploiting and profiting off of it, but we needed to legalize marijuana in our state for a racial equity issue because people of color were dying and being sent to prison and having their lives ruined over a plant. And that's not right. And so we needed to make sure that there was, because we decriminalized twice. The plant was decriminalized in 1970 and it was decriminalized in 2019. And in both times that it was decriminalized, people were still getting locked up. My father was locked up in 93, and that was after it was decriminalized in the 70s. And the law doesn't apply the same way as to white people as people of color, because police officers are allowed to use discretion and oftentimes are racially targeting our people, which is why they monitor our blocks and patrol our streets. But yeah, I just wanted to say that. And if you have questions about New York, like they're still putting together the regulations for the licensing. But if you follow us on Instagram, we're going to be doing an interview with a marijuana attorney specifically on co-ops and marijuana licensing in New York.
Thank you. That's really great. Thank you for sharing that. We'll put it in the chat, or you'll put it in the chat in a bit. I kind of wanted to go off with since we are a music media company, where do you see, as cannabis brands develop, artist endorsements and music festivals and kind of cannabis brands collaborating with festivals or artists? Because we all know music and weed kind of intertwine harmoniously. So where do you guys see that? Is that something that's possible with all the regulations?
Of course. Yeah. I mean, I've done with my partner Josh more licensing deals in cannabis than with musicians than anyone in the world. We've done, but G-Pen alone, we did probably 40 musician deals. And that's like, again, Action and Snoop and Wiz and all these people, right? And then with all the other brands since then, we've done these deals. And, and now we're owners, we own, the brands together with all these people or whatever, all these artists. But absolutely, again, it's the future. You can't even have a big Instagram account right now. You can't even have, right? Everything gets shut down all the time. They're not going to shut down Snoop's Instagram, or whoever, is Instagram. Maybe they'll take a post off or something, but look what Seth Rogen's been able to do with it. That celebrity just gets you that pass to be able to talk about it a little more, So yeah, of course. But again, I think that, like, no one cares, right? Like when we sit down with the celebrities, we say no one cares about your weed brand. Like you're not known for weed, like, yes, you sing about it, but you don't know how to do it. You don't know how to grow it. You don't have that, like, the permission, if you will, to do brand, so we really help them. That's why the brands haven't worked. That's why so many celebrity brands have come and gone, is because it was just like, because the lawyers and managers need to get their percentage, which I get it, so they want their advance, and it's just putting their face on a thing, and then they have to post once a month or whatever the contract says or something like that, and the people nowadays, they know that it's not real. They know it's just an ad. They know it's, there's these people don't really care about the brand or anything like that. So, but it's not going to stop. I think there's tons of space out there, and the festivals for sure. Again, we have a festival coming up in LA. We'll do one in New York as well, and we'll do it in San Francisco. But we will do it, and it's owned by the artists themselves, and they're fully integrated into it and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, again, they're the perfect megaphone. They're the way to syndicate a story or get it out there. So.
Yeah. Do you think that we'll have like weed festivals just dedicated to weed, or it would all
100%? Yeah, I'm doing one now, May 13th, 14th, 2022, Friday and Saturday. We're shutting down the street. We bought this crazy building, this 75,000 square foot building in downtown LA, and we're shutting down the street and the parking lots all right there. And it's like 115,000 square foot footprint. So it'll be like about 8,000 legal capacity or so. And we'll do it right there on the street. And weed's the headliner. That's what it's all about, and of course there's like the other events out here, Emerald Cup, and there was a thing called Chalice, and there was, of course, the High Times, cups. And these are festivals for that, but they're done with very little production, where we want to truly deliver Made in America, you're saying you're a Philly, right? Made in America is my like example for what I want to do, but for the weed space, like in the cities, downtown, doing it, kind of right. So, but yeah, of course, absolutely. It's going to be 1 million festivals. And New York, whoever's in New York is going to be the capital of the world. It already is capital for everything, right? Fashion, music, art, entertainment. That's what, LA maybe number 2. So like New York this is the biggest deal of all time coming on, So yeah, absolutely. This is where the biggest brands will come from, New York and California, just because of how much weed is here already,
Yeah. Since you've worked with a lot of bands as they were coming up, and we have a lot of young artists, upcoming artists, is, going into like the weed space. I know maybe like making your own weed brand as an artist maybe isn't the most lucrative, but perhaps for exposure, being part of these weed festivals and performing and kind of joining in on the advocacy? Is it something that you would recommend for a young artist going into?
Fuck yeah, of course, absolutely. I mean, to me, it's like we have a brand, so I'm getting better at doing it, right? Because that's how it works. And the newest brand we have is called Asterisk. And the idea with Asterisk is it's like a collective of people. So Juicy, Jay is one of the biggest partners, but Gary's also a publicly facing partner. I have a famous painter named Cody Hudson, who's partner in it. And then I'm now bringing in another half dozen people into the fold to make it like a, more of a collective, an Avengers for weed or something like that, And I think that's the future of this stuff, like even with the Gas brand with 2 Chainz or the Trees brand with Game, when we launched the Trees brand, it was Trees by Game. And now it's Trees by Game. And soon it's just going to be Trees, where, like, and obviously Games owns it. This is, the idea, but the celebrities are like that rocket fuel that get it, but then there's ultimately a glass ceiling, right? Like obviously Game, everyone knows that he's, slightly controversial, right? Like, so like,
Yeah.
These brands, if it's one celebrity brand, you're one, Instagram post away from getting canceled these days or whatever, right? So I think it's more that Calvin Klein-ish model, I guess, what they would do with like always getting the hot new people into the mix or whatever. But, the way we're doing it is equity. Everybody, all the artists, everybody owns the brands, together. Right. So, but yeah, absolutely. And there's going to be a ton of brands that don't work. Tons and tons and tons. Like how many one record labels are there? Right. Like there's going to be that many weed brands, like the same way. So I would say the biggest thing, actually, this is probably the most valuable thing I'll say today. The biggest thing is just to do short-term contracts, right? Meaning, when we do the artist deals, we just do like one-off record deals kind of thing. We do these really short-term things because weed companies don't exist yet. They're just getting started. How are you going to sign me for a 5-year deal to your company that's only been around for 2 months, kind of thing. So that's like a big thing. That's why we've been able to navigate and move our artists around so much, is because we just do these like little short-term things, really protecting the artist, so we can kind of get out of it if they're not hitting their deliverables and things like that. We're not like signing our life away, you know what I mean? But just knowing that. So that was the hard part though, because the artists were like, what do you mean we're gonna like jump around and have different partners? I'm like, yeah, because no one has it figured out yet. It's so new. They're just you know what I mean? So like you want to get in the mix right away, but you want to be able to jump off and go to a different boat if that one's obviously sinking kind of thing or whatever, So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Emily, any thoughts? Coming from New York, there's a lot of artists, and I know you do a lot of advocacy work. Any thoughts, ideas?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely know like underground events already happen. Like there's like rap ciphers and weed events. There's definitely like people throwing underground parties and rappers are performing and there's weed in the mix. Like we've always acted like marijuana was legal here before it was legal.
Yeah.
So we would go to concerts like in Barclays or at the Prudential Center in Jersey, and we'd be smoking in the concert venue. That was just always a thing.
Yeah,
or even in the club.
Yeah.
Just rolling up and smoking in the club. So that's always been a thing. It's just like on the low. It's just interesting now because we have these smoke-free laws here in New York, and basically you're not allowed to smoke weed anywhere that you can't smoke tobacco. So like in parks and stuff like that, you technically can't smoke, which like sucks because like Afro punk every year, like we used to always smoke an Afro punk, like that was like a thing, and like nobody bothered you like for smoking weed there. But it's technically a park, so I don't know how that's gonna work now with music festivals. Like if they'll give people like maybe permits,
yeah,
or like
that's what we do
permission.
here. Yeah, Emily, out here you can apply for a permit to do that, and you'll get like a one-time thing, and then you'll like literally have to talk to the neighbors and be like, it's gonna be smell like weed. It's like that kind of thing. But yeah, for sure. Fuck yeah.
Yeah, I know like we have the marijuana parade in Union Square every year, and like we were always allowed to smoke at the marijuana parade, like with the police around. They would get like special permission for that day. So there's one taking place this year. I believe we're also allowed to smoke. They basically generally said edibles are like fine. Like you technically can't sell them because it's not legal yet until next year. But like technically possession under 3 ounces is legal and gifting is technically okay. So I'm sure all of that is still happening. There's still 420 events happening. People are going to be rolling up and smoking in the park. There's parties planned. Like, it's all still going down. We're actually hoping to host some outdoor events this summer. So we'll keep you posted around marijuana legalization and National Expungement Week. So it should be dope. But yeah, I think it's going to be really dope. I'm excited for outdoor concerts in the summertime in New York City. I feel like the summertime is just the vibe. The rest of the year, I don't know about that, but those 3 summers when marijuana is legal is gonna be really lit. I will say that. Unfortunately, you can't smoke at restaurants, which is something that like I've always dreamed about, like eating and smoking. But
yeah, there's actually a place in New York that you can smoke weed and eat, but it's like super hidden. His name is like Pizza Pusha.
Oh well, yeah, I've had the stoned pizza before.
Yeah, I haven't been yet, but it's like a goal of mine to go because I want to do the same thing, smoke and eat at a restaurant. So.
I mean, I do it in my house all the time, but you know, I want to be outdoors. I want it to be a vibe.
Right, exactly. That like when similar as to when you go out and smoke hookah, I want that same experience too. So typically we have a Q&A. We kind of went over our time, but if anybody has any questions, please feel free to use the raise hand feature. And Lex, if you can let me know who raised their hand, if anyone. I can never see it.
You should be able to see now with the new Zoom update. I don't see anybody raising their hands just yet. Does anyone have any questions? Just shoot up your hand if you have something. All right, Maj has a question. Let me go ahead and unmute you. Hey, Maj.
How you doing? I didn't know how to do it. I didn't really have a question. Well, I do, but I really don't. I just wanted to show my sneakers.
Maj is an A&R for Dave Easton and Jim Jones, and he's got these really dope Future So Richer. What are they? I'm not a sneakerhead. Maj, you got to tell us what they are.
Well, they're the Future So Richer 420 Air Force Ones, which have weed on the check, and of course celebration for 420 and everything like that. I'm a weed smoker and I love it. And I'm from Uptown, which is like our signature shoe. So I just put 2 of them together and two of my loves together and did that.
Yes, so. I love your collab, Maj. I know we haven't caught up lately, but you know, I've been pushing you out to people.
Nah, and I appreciate that. You always are. So that's why I always love you. Feel me?
Love you. Cool. So everybody go get Maj's sneakers.
Yeah, those are dope. I want them for sure.
Cool. All right, Lottie, I see you have a question, so I'm going to go ahead and unmute you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Lottie Day. You can call me Lottie. So I'm a songwriter based between LA and New York. And I'm from New York, but I live in LA, but I also sometimes live in New York. So it's been very, very interesting seeing like the dynamic between the coasts of how things have happened. And, you know, I really love what you've been saying, Emily, about getting involved in more like activist related efforts. And I also like what you've been saying, Ram, about getting involved more on like the business side and like starting things up and, you know, investing and things like that. And so my question is, I'm someone who I don't necessarily want to be like a grower or a seller or anything like that, but I would love to just put my money into things. That's kind of how I work with like really any business. I don't have the bandwidth to really be super actively involved, but I love like investing in things that matter. So my question for you guys is how, in that respect, how can people get involved with your efforts, or are there any other efforts that you recommend investing in?
Rama, Mayo, you're on mute.
I was saying Emily can go if she wants. I'll go. She's not going. So yeah, to invest stuff, I would say, well, there's a few things, right? The publicly traded stocks are gonna be a thing for sure. I don't do it. I did a little bit. I sold it because I was like, I just felt like I needed to like kind of be a part of it, but then I didn't want to be a part of it. So that's going to happen. I definitely don't recommend that, but there's going to be runs, especially going to federal legalization, where, just like roulette style, those are going to be a thing, right? And then there's really only a few private ways, right? There's very, very little, placement, of money that isn't just coming through the family offices, is what it would be called, right? So I would say it's like, if you want to be completely hands off, it would be, man, it's scary because it's your money. I don't want to fuck it up, but it's like, I would say just like invest into the kind of things that you're into specifically. And it's the jockey, not the horse, or whatever they would say. Right. So to me, it's the operator over anything, because if you have like a real strict plan in cannabis, you're fucked, it's just not going to work. Right. So you need to be able to like adapt every second, and like be it, just like the plant itself, be able to like, grow in these different crazy places and ways. So with that, you need to have, I believe, like a real specific like brand DNA and goal, right? That way, like you're not getting distracted, because like the route, you don't exactly know what it's going to be, but if you know what the real goal is, I think that's that's the best thing. Like, that's the only thing you can have. So that, and then LA, New York, I mean, fuck, there's not really much. The crazy thing is, if you're legal stuff, the taxes are so high, people aren't really making a lot of money. Like single dispensaries, these things, like they're not, they're not gonna be a thing, so tech stuff, maybe. I like the tech stuff a lot. There's like platforms like Dutchie, DUTCHIE. If you Google them, they're like now $1 billion business. I've never heard of them until like a couple, weeks ago, kind of thing. And they're just like doing POS system and like the back end stuff, like the Shopify for weed or something, right? So those to me are super interesting, because that's like the tech side of it is how you can really scale. How do you get, even if you have the biggest dispensary in the city, how do you do another one? It's just a lot of work, So I don't know if that's a good answer.
Emily, do you have anything to add?
Thank you.
Yeah. For us, because we're heavily involved in the cooperative movement, we are working to build out a consumer membership for our cooperative, which means that our clients, the people who purchase purchase services and products from us, would be able to purchase a membership, a yearly membership, and they would be able to build equity in our business in that way. So that's definitely something that we're building out. We are hoping to be able to create consumer dispensaries, and it was a dream of a lot of folks, where folks will be able to and be a consumer owner of a dispensary. We are working with our attorneys to work that out in legislation, because right now co-ops can't own dispensaries under the MRTA. But it appears that that doesn't necessarily mean that a co-op wouldn't be able to obtain a dispensary license and still operate as a co-op. So that's what they're looking into right now. So definitely, if you stay in contact with us, I can let you know about how that's going to go on the New York side. I personally don't invest in the stock market, so I can't really tell you about corporate cannabis and like investing in there. I have friends who have told me that they have invested in corporate cannabis, some friends who've invested in Canadian companies, and they've definitely said that they are excited about New York legalization, because they're hoping to have a stake here, which I'm hoping to prevent. So if I have any say in it, they won't be able to get into the market here in that way. But yeah, I'm a fan of consumer cooperatives as like a way to be like a member and like invest in that way and build equity. I know some other folks in like other industries that like I'm planning to invest in, that I can send you information about, women of color that are like entrepreneurs that are starting their own businesses. One is doing like a skate shop for like roller skates, and someone who's opening a co-creating space for people of the diaspora. So those are things that I'll be investing in. But for marijuana businesses, other than co-ops, I can't really say personally anyone that I know that I would like want to put my money into their business right now. And I could tell you like wholeheartedly and faithfully that you're going to get like a return on your investment.
Lottie, does that help answer your question?
Yeah, no, super helpful. Thank you guys so much. I certainly will be following up.
Emily and Rama Mayo, can you explain why co-ops aren't allowed to own dispensaries?
I don't know. I love the co-op idea, but I don't know anything about the laws of it. So yeah, I'd love to even know more. I agree. Same, great question.
So it's something weird that happened in the legislation here in New York. We don't know why it played out that way. So co-ops are actually allowed to be vertically integrated until retail. Like they knocked that off for some reason. And then co-ops are not allowed to have dispensary licenses. And then the way that they set it up in the legislation, if you have a dispensary license, you can't have a stake in another license. So you're allowed to have 3 dispensary locations, but you are not allowed to have be a co-owner of any other type of license. So I guess they were trying to prevent vertical integration in New York, but it's weird. Like micro businesses are allowed to be vertically integrated, but they're in regulations. They're gonna regulate like the scale of micro businesses. So you may only be able to sell like maybe one or like a few products. Like it might be limited how much you can sell. And then it says that they can have retail. So it sounds like they could probably have like social consumption lounges, but we're unsure if they're gonna be able to have like a small dispensary location. And that's gonna be worked out in regulation, which is why regulations are so big. And then the only exception to the law is, which is really fucked up, is the medical dispensaries. They're already vertically integrated in the medical program. So they're going to be allowed to open 3 dispensary locations in the adult use program. And because they're already vertically integrated, they're going to be allowed to continue vertically integrated. And it's fucked up because all those 10 dispensary owners, none of them are people of color. They're all white. And only one of them are actually from New York, which is Etain. All of the other ones are like other multi-state operators are not from here. So it's like really fucked up. And they also have poor quality product. There's been a lot of complaints, even suits about like the quality of their product. Curaleaf, I think, is like in a lawsuit for New Jersey for selling moldy weed. And these are the people that they're going to be allowing into the adult use program.
Oh my God.
But they're the ones that lobbied to get the laws the way they are. That's been the plan from the beginning. The only reason companies went there and lost money in New York was for this day. You know, they're converting the spot. That's what happened here. That's what happens in all the states. The medical goes in and the whole plan is to convert medical to adult use or recreational, depending on what state you live in, what they call it, you know? Yeah.
This is a really interesting conversation. Is this somewhat making sense to some of you? Because I know some of you are still really early in learning about the cannabis industry. So if you have additional questions, feel free to raise your hand. I see you have a question. Go ahead.
Okay, so first of all, let me say I was blessed to be able to live in California and Colorado. So I have a lot of experience with the marijuana industry. In the state of New York, it's unfortunate that they're doing that because in California, in Colorado, now they're able to actually co-op. I've seen where I've met like people who own businesses in Portland, and they've moved that same franchise to Colorado. I mean, they're now allowed to own franchises in different states. This is normal. This is regular. I don't know what New York is doing, but it seems like they're just trying to fight it all the way. But it's going to be legal everywhere. I've had the pleasure of meeting DB Kush. He's one of my boys. I even have a friend that's a lobbyist in the marijuana industry, and everybody's fighting to get this to be legal, and it's going to be legal regardless because it's a lot of money involved. It's $1 billion industry. These people are not going to fight on it. They're not going to fight on it at all because they want a piece of the pie. The one thing I don't like is the fact that there's kind of like a monopoly on the licenses. So they are trying to stop people from getting licenses, mainly people of color, true, but they have a monopoly on it. So a friend of mine, he's been working for years.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but it just in the essence of time, can you start with your question? And then if you have a backstory, then we can move on to that. That way we have time for everybody's questions.
Well, I don't really have a question. I'm just,
Oh.
what's going on. Like a friend of mine, he tried his hardest to get a license in Colorado. At first, they were trying to stop him, but he finally got it. But it took him years to get it. It's hard to get a license, but if you just keep working at it, you're gonna have to put a lot of money in it. He put like $1 million in it at first, and I'm sure he put a lot more. But you're gonna have to have money. And if you want to invest in it, I would say start with stocks first.
Gotcha. Thank you, Dee. Appreciate that. Amanda, I know you also have something to add. You also wanted to add in a comment. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say really quickly from the branding side. First of all, I love all the gems that Rama and Emily dropped. Thank you so much for giving us all that knowledge. Because I mean, I'm very happy to see that you touched on all of this, just because from the branding side, I mean, I started working with Snoop on, marijuana way back. Even before Wiz, because I saw the comment about Wiz. Wiz got his blueprint from Snoop. But basically I wanted to just touch really quick, because I know that Emily had mentioned this, and just as a backstory, because I was on a council for this. Yes, Pharma has certain stipulations in place to keep co-ops and any other small business to get the license to be able to sell. So big pharma is what's lobbying against smaller companies to come to the table. And so until that's changed, which is what they're going back to the table for, it's going to continue to be that way, unfortunately. This is why co-ops and smaller businesses and certain lounges will not be able to get their license. It's because of the red tape that was already put into place once medical marijuana was put into place to be legal. So that's one. That's the first thing I wanted to mention really quickly. The second thing is, I love what you said, Rama, about brands. There's so many shallow brands out here, one and done, simply because it's just about putting a face on it, So the people, the OGs that's been in the business for a minute, who is building right now, they're going to be the ones that's going to stand the test of time. So we're going to see a lot pop in and pop out, when it comes down to this business. And so, with these brands that are popping up right now, let's see who sticks around, about the longevity and everything else. I see some incredible brands that have been in this for a minute, female growers from Cannabis to Tribe Tokes to you name it in this space. And they're the OGs. They've been around for like over 8 years, so it's interesting to see where everybody grows. When it comes down to music and artists, it's all about licensing. There's very few artists that are actually in the business, as in getting their hands in the ground, know how to grow a plant, know how to manufacture and distribute, So my thing is, if you're an artist and you want to get in the game, know your shit, learn your shit, if you really want to make money in the game. And then as far as the stock market, as an investor myself, listen, we've looked into medical marijuana. We've looked into the Curaleafs, the MedMens and everything else. And we realized that there's not a whole lot of backstory and not a lot of staying power in this game when it comes down to medical marijuana. The reason why they're blocking licenses for people such as yourself, Emily, is because they're scared. At the end of the day, they know that they're very shallow when it comes down to the marketing and really being hands-on in this business. And they know that another lounge such as yours can be big competition for them. Because if you're a one-trick pony and you're only selling a certain type of marijuana at very high prices, heavily taxed and everything else, somebody comes into the game and really truly knows the lifestyle, they know that the jig is up at the end of the day. And then they're going to be wondering, how are we going to make our money? How are we going to pivot? Because the medical marijuana space isn't as easy to pivot as someone such as yourself, Rama, who knows the brands, have been in the game and everything else, So this is why they're blocking. Because they don't want somebody smaller in the game to come in and be like, and then they're watching the trends like, okay, how can we do this? How can we do that? How can we get in? You know what I mean? So again, if you're looking to invest in the space, I would say, wait a minute, pay attention to the OGs in this business. They're the ones to invest in, because that's how you're going to get your money back, but being that it's so volatile right now, I say, wait a minute, really pay attention to what's happening. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you, Amanda. Rama, Mayo, or Emily, anything to add to that?
Thank you so much for that, Amanda. I really appreciate that. And I did want to add that in 2018, the Cannabis Regulation and Taxation Act that Governor Cuomo put out, basically his bill was going to grandfather all of the medical marijuana businesses into the industry before anyone else. So they would have been the first businesses to open up in the industry and operate before any equity applicants or anyone. And that was because all of the medical marijuana registered organizations in New York came together and put out a report saying that our communities were not ready to enter the marijuana industry, that we didn't have the experience. We wouldn't be able to create quality products and put quality products out on the market, which is ridiculous because we have been stewarding this plant for ancestral plant for generations. And this is why we are able to have a legal industry today, because of the work that people have done, putting their lives on the ground, like putting their lives at risk to grow the plant, to sell the plant, to make sure people have access to their medicine. It's completely ridiculous to say that we've been consuming this plant for at least over a decade. And now all of a sudden people don't know how to create quality medicine when this medicine has been the medicine that we've been using to heal ourselves since before legalization occurred. So that's completely ridiculous. And in California, when they first legalized in California, all of the businesses were marijuana cooperatives. They were generational growers who had transitioned from the underground into the legal market. And then when adult use opened up in California and all of these big competitors came in with expendable bank accounts. All these white people came in with expendable bank accounts. They could no longer compete, and they went out of business. So that's why there's not many licenses right now in California for marijuana co-ops. I know in San Francisco, Nina Parks has been doing a lot of organizing around bringing back marijuana cooperative licenses there. But Massachusetts does have a lot of cooperative licenses in their state, but I don't think many people have been able to access them yet.
Rama, Maya, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that the big cannabis stuff that we're talking about, it's funny that they say that, the underground, whatever, can't give good product because all the big product from big cannabis sucks. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, it's not like we're like their bar is set very low.
Mm-hmm.
For them to use this excuse is pretty silly. But yeah, of course, like the lobbyists, I was blown away. I still am. We don't have lobbyists, right? But like all the brands do, all of them. All the big brands, and they have teams of them. And I was like so shocked. They'd be like, who's this? Oh, those are our lobbyists. And this is years ago. And I was like, wait, I didn't even really know what that meant. Do you know what I mean? So like, it's just such a wild world. But yeah, they have unlimited money, of course, like these people. Yeah. And they're losing tons of more than that. Like a company like MedMen, I'm sure it's corrected, but they were hemorrhaging money. They were losing a couple $100 million a year to stay in business.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Uber makes no money, right? So there's no difference there. But like, is MedMen going to become the Uber thing or whatever? And I think it will be like my call, I guess, my prediction on dispensary stuff will be like they'll become Bevmos, and then they'll be like the 7-Elevens or the bodegas, like like the single little things that are like super maybe specialized, maybe still be cool, hopefully, and then there's going to be just those big eyesore like CVS's, like you're saying big pharma is one lobbying. That doesn't surprise me at all because it's CVS or whoever is going to buy, that's who's going to run these. I mean, up in Canada, it's even weirder up there, and Circle K owns hundreds of dispensaries in Canada, so it's exactly that, but yeah, we'll see. Hopefully they don't like suck all the goodness out of this, right? That's like I just want to be able to have awesome weed. You know what I mean? And not be like ashamed, you know what I mean? And like embarrassed by what's going on, So
one of the reasons, go ahead, Rama.
That's it.
I wanted to add something really quickly.
Yeah, go ahead, Emily.
In New York State, we fought for homegrown. We were not going to legalize marijuana in New York State without homegrown. So that's why it is accessible for people to be able to grow their own marijuana. If you do have a medical marijuana card in New York, you can start growing. Attorneys have been saying as early as September of this year, even before the legislation goes into effect. And just to put an emphasis on something else Amanda said, was that we need to become experts in the industry. You need to get your hands in the soil, and you need to start growing weed. You need to start reading books about growing weed. They say Ed Rosenthal is the best, so I would cop his books. But I would read all types of books about growing weed, and definitely just like start experiencing the plant, make your own treats with the plant. You know, also like if you're able to take any workshops, I think that could help. I did a bud tending training with hemp staff, and I found that to be really informative and learning about terpenes and the different cannabinoids. It gets more extensive than that, so I would definitely say read a lot, but definitely just working with the plant yourself could be really helpful.
Emily, you have all of the resources. So if anybody needs more resources, you all know where to go. So we're running out of time. I wanted to say that the reason why we hosted this event and chose Rama, Mayo, and Emily specifically was because Emily does a lot of amazing advocacy work, and Rama, Mayo is an OG in the game as well. So first of all, thank you both so much for even sharing your experiences in cannabis. We could have gotten the largest industrial hemp farm growers in the world to come here, but we decided to choose the both of you because we figured that you both would have some amazing advice. So thank you both so much for joining us. I do have 2 submissions from Lottie and Emma that I wanted to play us out with. Emma submitted something to us that was about rising together through COVID, and I thought it had a great message, and Lottie always comes in with the dope jams. So we have some songs to play us out with, but before we do that, Rama, Mayo, or Emily, any last pieces of advice or anything that you want to add to inspire people to go out into the world and learn more about cannabis?
Emily?
You can go first. I'm thinking for a second.
Yeah, okay. Well, that was my move, but okay, I got it. So I would say to inspire. Yeah, I mean, I think this was an awesome thing, first of all. So thank you everybody for the time and just listening in and whatever, honestly, I really appreciate it. And even seeing the chat and stuff, talking, it's just like awesome. I don't know, it's because I haven't left my house in a year or whatever, but it's just nice to do anything. And I would say, like it's not started yet. Again, you guys know Gary, like he thinks the game hasn't even been started. He's like, we're in bed. We haven't even showered or put our socks on. You know what I mean? So like that to me, I was like, even, whoa, okay. Like, right. So I would say like, look at it that way, because that's going to be the biggest thing. Like your lizard brain in the back of our heads says like, protect, 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 but if you have these ideas, like I want to do this, don't fucking back out of it. Just like follow a couple of these things through. I think learning is going to be so important. And I'll end it with this. I truly believe interns of companies today are going to be CEOs of huge companies in 3 years from now. Straight up. So that's what's going on.
Love that. Thank you so much. Emily?
I think that was dope. I also agree that I believe the industry is still being shaped right now. I think that we have an opportunity to shape the regulations and how the legislation is being implemented to make sure that our communities are prioritized. There's a lot of interesting work that we're going to be doing around fighting for legislative ask, or fighting for ask from our city council around moratorium on licensing, around getting space for folks who are in federally subsidized housing who technically can't consume in their homes or grow in their homes, even around trying to obtain grants for community land trusts, which can be really interesting. So definitely the cooperative movement is a way to make the industry more accessible. And I do see co-ops being the wave of the future in the marijuana industry. And I think that can be really exciting. And so I don't want anyone to get so discouraged right now about the way that the legal market is looking right now across other legal states, because we still have an opportunity to shape what the legislation looks like in our state before federal legalization happens. And what the legislation that's in place in our state will take precedent over federal legislation. So definitely get involved in advocacy work now, especially if you're planning on, owning a marijuana business or even investing in a marijuana business, because you want to see the success of the people in this industry.
I love that.
Thank you.
Rama, Mayo, and Emily, thank you both so much. We also wanted to host this event because we wanted to celebrate the legalization of weed in New York City. Woo, woo, woo.
Thank you.
Yay. And thank you for all the work that you do, the work that the both of you do in this space. We appreciate you both so much. I have these 2 songs that I'm going to play us out with. And if anyone wants to hang in and continue to smoke up, roll up with us, then we will be here for you. But can we please get a round of applause? Unmute yourselves, give us a little woo woo or clap for our lovely panelists, and
guys.
to congratulate us for legalization.
Awesome.
Woo. Thank you so much, Rama, Mayo, and Emily. And I will play us out with some music. So give me just 1 second. And oops, sorry, y'all. I have so many tabs open, so I'm going to share screen this. Give me just 1 second. I'm not high, and I wish I was, but one day, well, there will be a strain that does not affect me in a bad way. So here we go. This is Rise Together by Lisa Eves and Miss Emma. On the front line. Sorry, start from the very beginning. Hold on. But I have had a lot of caffeine, so that's another drug. Here we go.
Waking up to a COVID morning, reminiscing of the past, when the days were free and easy, a life without a mask. Look into the future, try and put a star in the sky. All the tears in this world leave us wondering why. When we rise together, there is nothing better. We sing, laugh, cry, and move on. The world was dealt a tough hand that spread across this great land. So we sing, laugh, cry, let's move on. We rise together. We rise together. We praise those on the front lines, for they have sacrificed endless days, sleepless nights to free us from this plight. Loved ones who we've lost, may the angels hold their hearts. Give us strength and light to lead us from the dark. When we rise together, there is nothing better. We sing, laugh, cry, and move on. The world was dealt a tough hand that spread across this great land. So we sing, laugh, cry, let's move on. We rise together. Please give me.
All right, that was Rise Together by Miss Lisa and Emma. Thank you for the lovely message. And then one last song, and this one is to kind of hype us up, and y'all can smoke up and get one more great smoke on. I don't even know what the phrase is. I don't smoke. You can tell I'm not a smoker here. This is Bags by our lovely Lottie. And Lottie, is this by Mickey Shiloh too?
Yeah, this is Mickey's song, but I helped co-write it.
Yes. Okay, cool. Here we go.
Yeah, ice on my wrist and I'm feeling like a star. You playing the bench and I'm playing point guard. You busy dreaming while I set the bar. I dance with my demons, they know who they are. Rapping in it for a minute, now I'm doing big things. Couldn't wait in traffic, so I made my own lane. Swiping and swerving on all of the lames. Did what I said, so we poppin' champagne. I got bags on bags. All my bitches got bags, and we bad, so bad. All my bitches, we bad. We got stacks on stacks. All my bitches got stacks. We got bags on bags. All my bitches got bags. Tryna hit a Billy like a free throw, and I got 'em staring at me like a freak show. Yeah, I'ma get my piece and my piece though. Necesito, necesito. I need it in the evenings, on the weekends, can't sleep in. I mean it, no preaching, you see it. I got bags on bags. All my bitches got bags, and we bad, so bad. All my bitches, we bad. We got stacks on stacks. All my bitches got stacks. We got bags on bags. All my bitches got bags, bags on bags. All my bitches got bags, and we bad, so bad. All my bitches, we bad. We got stacks on stacks. All my bitches got stacks. We got bags on bags. All my bitches got bags.
Ooh.
Thanks.
Fire. Ooh. Cool. All right, y'all. Well, that concludes us for our Saturday. I'll stick around if anyone has any questions or wants to just hang out really quickly. But again, Rama, Mayo, and Emily, thank you both so much for joining us. And thank you everybody else for joining us today. Happy Saturday.
Yeah, thanks everybody. Hit me up on like anything, email or Instagram. These guys can give you my info or whatever. Not Instagram, email or something if you want to connect.
Oh yeah, Rama Mayo is the email that you want if anybody wants
Rama,
to connect.
Yeah, so sorry, I'm not trying to plug, of course. Rama at greenstreetagency.com.
Okay.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's just Rama. My mom's this crazy super hippie lady. And I love her, of course. And yeah, so hit me up, just Rama at greenstreetagency.com on anything, whatever. Like if you have questions or something, I'll good. Anyone that wants some help, I'll see whatever I can do. You know.
So Emily, any way that folks can get a hold of you?
Thank you. This was amazing. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Happy weekend. You can follow us on Instagram or you can email us at jaimemadre@gmail.com.
Amazing. All right, so I am leaving that in the chat. We'll keep this open for just a few more minutes, but thank you everybody so much. Thank you, Justine, for hosting, and woo woo to the legalization of weed in New York City.
Yeah. Awesome. Bye everybody. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you everybody. Happy Saturday.
Thanks for a great event, Alexi.
Yeah, no problem. Happy 420.
Awesome. Happy Saturday.
Great. Thank you. Bye.
Bye, y'all. Bye, Kingston.
Kingston.
Oh, we missed you,
Hello.
Kingston. Yeah, we missed you so much.
I'm just thinking about you. I was like, Kingston never has his camera on
How's it
anymore.
going?
What is he doing?
So, you know, it's morning in LA and now it's, well, it's